Hey everybody, what's going on? Hellmite here, bringing you another video from Grab the Lantern today. I had a completely different topic lined up for today, but Zoe's reveal has thrown everything out of my mind. I am very excited to talk about this new champion, and I will be giving my first few impressions on Zoe in today's podcast. Now, Zoe is intended to be a burst mage, or so Riot have said, which means that she should be a champion similar to Veigar or Lux or something along those lines. So she should be landing her CC and then annihilating you in one quick combo. Now, this doesn't mean she's like an assassin who kind of all-ins you and doesn't have very big windows of opportunity. Zoe does have some kind of utility involved in her kit, and she is very damage focused, but it's more telegraphed damage. So if Zoe doesn't land her CC, she won't be able to necessarily kill you. With all that said, let's go ahead and dive right in. First up is her passive, More Sparkles. After casting a spell, her next basic attack does bonus magic damage. Basically, she has Sheen as a passive. So this is a kind of interesting ability. It doesn't do that much by itself, but as we'll see, it actually does a significant amount for Zoe with the rest of her kit, and it does emphasize the fact that she is going to be a Sheen Lichbane user, because if she already wants to be casting a spell and auto-attacking, Sheen and Lichbane just make her even better. Next up is her Q called Paddle Star. She basically fires a skill shot in a direction that damages enemies in a small area where it lands, and applies her passive, which is important because it does mean that she'll get a bunch of free bonus damage off of it. The other thing that I really like that this ability does is that you can redirect it at least once during its cast, so you can maneuver it around the minion wave to strike at an enemy champion behind it, or alternatively, you can send it way far behind you and then way towards the enemy champion. This is relevant because Paddle Star deals more damage the further it's traveled in a straight line. So if you send Paddle Star way behind you and then way forward and it hits an enemy champion, you're going to do a ton of damage. It looks like it actually has pretty insane damage scalings on it, just based on the gameplay they've shown. Now, Riot generally try to emphasize that it will do more damage the further it travels, so you can't necessarily take everything into account from what you've seen, but it does look like that's going to do a tremendous amount of damage. But because you have to have the ability to travel quite a long ways to get the insane amount of damage, you basically need some follow-up or some crowd control in order to actually get the amount of damage that the ability is capable of. Next up, you have Zoe's W, Spell Thief. Now, this is really weird, and I'm not quite sure how this is going to work in-game, but basically, enemy summoner spells and active item casts drop bubbles on the ground first for a period of time, and sometimes minions will also drop spell shards. Now, the exact description of the ability says, collecting a spell shard grants one cast of that spell or active item. What I'm taking this to mean is that when a spell shard drops, it will be labeled as to what exactly it is going to refresh. So it'll have Paddle Star's icon on it, or Flash's icon on it, or something along those lines. So you'll know what it is you're getting back when you collect the bubble. Then, so basically this is a big deal because it does mean that Zoe can essentially reset her cooldowns whenever she wants, as long as she has a shard available. So if this flash shard drops, you just kind of wait around, then you flash on somebody, you pick up the flash shard, you can flash again. That's pretty insane. Now, I don't know exactly how it's going to scale with level, but it does seem like this may be the ability that you take last. Secondly, whenever you cast a summoner spell, Zoe gains a burst of movement speed and tosses missiles at the nearest enemy champion, or at the nearest enemy, prioritizing her nearest enemy. And each missile can trigger her passive. So again, she's going to be very dependent on levels because she really wants to be landing, she really wants to be auto-attacking and proccing her passive as much as possible for her damage. This also means that as she's flashing or ghosting and resetting based on her spell shards, she's going to be able to proc this multiple times in a fight and hopefully get more damage off. It does kind of seem like it gives her more of an extended damage output, but ideally with Paddle Star, she's just using it as sort of a finish. Anyways, next up is Zoe's E. Her E is called Sleepy Trouble Bubble. She basically throws a skill shot out that detonates on the first target hit that deals magic damage and makes the struck enemy drowsy. After a couple seconds, the drowsy enemy will fall asleep, which means that it's basically a stun and they'll take extra damage from the next attack or spell. Whenever an enemy falls asleep as well, the cooldown on Sleepy Trouble Bubble is going to be reduced. And if the bubble hits nothing, it creates a trap and can bounce over walls to gain increased range. Now, this is kind of an interesting crowd control landing. Obviously, if she hits you straight up, you're going to get drowsy, you're going to fall asleep, and then she can Paddle Star you for about 1,000,000 damage. However, it's not guaranteed. It seems like a relatively slow skill shot, and it also has a bit of interesting counterplay in that it can act as a trap, so you can kind of set it up in a choke area. You don't have to hit anybody with it, but you know that if they do walk through it, you have the option to land some serious damage with Paddlestar. So kind of a weird ability, flavored weirdly, and I don't see necessarily why it's called sleep versus just another stun. I don't understand the difference between sleep and stuns. So like Brittle was a unique debuff that had its own properties to it, whereas I don't get how sleep differs from stuns, but I guess we'll find out when she actually hits the PvE. Finally, her Zoe's ultimate is called Portal Jump. She teleports to a target location, then teleports back. During the teleport, she can use abilities, attack normally, and see over walls, but she can't move. So what this means is that she can theoretically portal in, throw a bubble at you, and then immediately pop back out. And this gives her a bunch of really interesting utility things she can do with that. She can kind of pop in, throw some spells, pop out, use it to scout on Dragon, pop in, throw some damage down, pop back out. It's going to be really interesting to see exactly how this ability get used. Now, Riot also did confirm the ability's cooldown is 10, 8, 6 seconds per rank. So that's a huge deal because it means that she's almost always going to have it available. The other thing that the portal means is that Zoe's kit isn't reliant on her ultimate for her burst. So a burst mage like Lux or Veigar are pretty reliant on their ultimate to finish off a target unless they're very, very fed. Zoe, however, her ultimate isn't part of her damage combo. Her whole damage combo is essentially land Sleepy Trouble Bubble, then use it to get a huge range Paddlestar, and then I guess basically flash on them and hope that you have sufficient damage from your Spell Thief passive. It's a weird damage combo, but it does mean that she is not reliant on an ultimate cooldown before she can assassinate. Or burst, I guess I should say. Which means that she's essentially always online. This is kind of scary, but I think her kit is not necessarily, doesn't have that much damage involved in the basic combo that's very reliable, unlike somebody like Lux or Veigar, so I'm a little bit okay with it. Basically, I don't know what to make of Zoe's kit, I'll be completely honest. It has a lot of really weird, really interesting tools that you can use in a bunch of different ways, and I don't necessarily know that any one particular way is going to be better than others. Spell Thief in particular, I think, has the potential to be very strong, but I don't necessarily know how strong it will be. I do think that Zoe has some interesting synergies with the unlocked spellbook, I believe was the name of the rune, and the new runes and mastery system, because that does allow you to swap out summoner spells in the middle of the game. So Zoe, who already has a lot of interactions with summoner spells, can just swap out depending on what she wants. It's some really interesting things going on with this champion. She is definitely a burst mage. I think I can confirm that much just based on the amount of damage she can deal with Paddlestar, I should say. And she does have the ability to burst somebody because she lands the crowd control and then she's able to set herself up. However, I really don't know exactly how she's going to work out at the end of the day. She has a lot of really weird tools, so we'll see how it ends up going. As far as actual thematics go, I think Zoe is quite interesting. She's intended to be the Targonian aspect of Twilight, so Leona is the aspect of the sun, Diana is the aspect of the moon, and she's somewhere in the middle. This is really weird, and it means that we have another aspect on Runeterra, which means that you normally don't have any more than 1 or 2 manifesting at a time to counter some great threat. If we have upwards of 5 aspects on Runeterra at the same time, that's potentially a big threat coming up. Zoe is also the aspect of Twilight, which Targonians regard Twilight as sort of the time of change between night and day, that kind of thing. But so Zoe's arrival does mean that things are going to be changing, potentially drastically, and she's sort of the herald of all this change to come. So I think she has some interesting lore implications. She's also talked a lot about Aurelian Soul, and she's one of the older aspects, even though she looks like she's 12. I don't know why developers keep making this decision, but it happens. But she's one of the older ones, which means she was probably around when Aurelian Soul was first caged, and she probably has the most knowledge, I guess, of what is to come and what she's expecting. So it'll be interesting to see her full color bio, which should be released ideally sometime either later this week or potentially before the next patch comes out. Anyways, I'm very excited to see her in-game. I'm very excited to kind of try and puzzle her out in-game, and it should be quite an interesting experience. Go ahead and let me know your guys' thoughts on Zoe down in the comment section below. I would love to hear if you guys are thinking she looks good, she looks bad, she looks weird, whatever it is. Go ahead and drop it down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave a like, and if you really enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I will talk to you all later.